A phrase I've often heard is that time heals all wounds. And this phrase is usually said when people need some kind of solace, something to hold on to, something to comfort them. It is usually said in the wake of a painful event, especially one with a more personal tone. And if I had to be honest, I find that those words of comfort tend to do the opposite for me. They usually make me feel more bitter than I was feeling before. If you look at popular fiction, historical events, or our own personal lives, some past events still sting much like they did back then. And sometimes, time makes it more painful. Maybe it invokes feelings of nostalgia, regret, or anger. And while I don't know what those circumstances are for you, I'm sure you saw some memories as I mentioned the feelings that accompany them. I want to talk about the pain of time. I would define the pain of time as such: the inability to accept that time moves forward, and as a result, one becomes incapable of accepting the present. 5 centimeters per second is a film by Makoto Shinkai, and while it is sometimes derided as boring, I find that it is a stark and blunt representation of romance. It is slow, arduous, and yet beautiful, with themes of love, the loss of innocence, the harshness of time, and the reality that we live in. And unlike Your Name and Weathering with You, Shinkai subverts the traditional norms of fictional romance in favor of commentary on the naivety of idealized romance. If you haven't seen it, I would highly encourage it. And while it's not a movie for everyone, I think the film is subtle and rather realistic, with gorgeous backgrounds and beautiful music. I think most of us like idealized romance. The notion that a couple will overcome all obstacles to be together, that they have a future together, regardless of the turmoil or challenges before them. I'm a hopeless romantic and a rather sentimental person. And in repeated viewings of 5 centimeters per second, each time has hit me harder than the last. The past is a strange thing. We can't relive it. We can only remember the images and the feelings that we may have had at the time, but we can never go back to exist at that exact moment in time again. Memories aren't really memories until they pass, and we don't really know how good those memories are until they're fully behind us. I can't really remember what my grandfather was like before his dementia, but I can recall what it was like to visit my grandparents' house when we would go and see him. He would be lying there on his bed, and there were no clear signs that he recognized myself or my brothers. It was a very foreign and sometimes painful feeling. He passed away in 2011, and I find that I still think about him from time to time. Even though we struggled to communicate and he recalled almost nothing about me, I still remember him. I've visited his gravesite a couple times since then with my father and some extended family, and I will always remember the clear blue sky of those days, intermixed with an atmosphere of acceptance and the hope that one day we'll see him again. 5 centimeters per second comes in 3 different stages of life. It begins at burgeoning childhood, portrays the difficulty of teenage adolescence, and ends at fledgling adulthood. I've experienced 2 stages of the movie so far, and I'm now on the cusp of the 3rd stage. I suppose that's why the movie has become more and more relevant to me each time I've watched it. The title of the movie refers to the speed at which cherry blossom petals descend to the ground, and in a way, I think the movie symbolizes the somewhat slow pace of life, and how people can start at the same place, but slowly drift away into separate paths. I'll be completely honest, I didn't remember the names of the main characters when I first watched this film. And yet, its blunt honesty struck me. Takaki, the narrator, reflects on how his relationship first began and developed with Akari, his childhood girlfriend. And their similarly aloof natures and their closeness causes their classmates to tease them, but they don't mind because they have each other. The pain of time strikes shortly after, as Akari is moving away. But despite their separation, they promise to write letters and to visit each other. And once again, as time passes, Takaki learns that his family will be moving too, even farther away from Akari. So the two of them decide to see each other for what feels like the last time. A number of my childhood friends moved away when I was in elementary school. My brother and I were good friends with another family, as they were also a 3-sibling family, 2 girls and 1 boy. We basically grew up together, with both of our families listed on an arranged playdate list. That type of thing doesn't really happen anymore. I even had a crush on one of the 2 girls for a really long time. I really liked her. Then we received the news that they would be moving away to Singapore. And that's on the other side of the world. I also grew up with 3 girls. 2 of them were sisters, and then there was myself and another girl. We shared a lot of memories and experiences, and we were always seen together. And while I certainly had moments of frustration and laughter with each of them, I'm sure that all 4 of us look back on those memories rather fondly. We stayed fairly close until the oldest of our group became a teenager, and after that, I gradually drifted away from them. Despite that distance, I still felt a great pain in my heart when the sisters revealed that they would be moving. I imagine that someday I'll write a compilation of all my romantic encounters, with the good, the bad, the feelings, and all the memories in between. Just like that, Shinkai's narrative decision to tell the story in retrospect gives the story a sense of heartache and longing, with a sense of inevitability. It creates this sense of urgency, this sense of pain. Memories fade and details become more fuzzy, but I suppose that's why I myself feel such a bitter pain when I lament the loss of something that once held great importance to me. Akari alludes to the end result of their relationship with her words, that while their distance is physical, it has also created emotional distance as well. But Takaki holds on to a particular belief when the two finally meet, that regardless of their circumstances, they will be together. To some degree, I think that all people would like to remain in the moments where they felt the happiest. However, time quickly casts that illusion aside. Over time, things will inevitably change us, whether we want to change or not. Reality can be a harsh teacher. When Takaki sets aside reality for that faint spark of hope, I found it reminiscent of my own past feelings. That without experience, maturity, and wisdom, I clung to the things that influenced me most at the time. And for Takaki, that thing is his perceived feelings for Akari. We might try to blind ourselves to the future to live in the present, but in hindsight those memories tend to be rather bitter. And the whole movie alludes to this theme. I can think of no moment in the film that emphasizes the pain of time more than Takaki's journey to meet Akari. His original plan is completely derailed, as the weather repeatedly delays his vain attempt to reach her. The circumstances of his journey are equally agonizing for both the viewer and Takaki himself. In fact, my friend Kevin commented that it was like he was there, that he was Takaki, waiting for the seconds to pass by as the train slowly moved along to its eventual destination. The rest of the film follows this agonizing tone, that despite Takaki's state of longing and the hope that his feelings will reach and stay with Akari, only emptiness and unfulfillment await him. Have you ever had feelings for someone? So strong that you wanted to confess? But something stopped you every time. And so the pain in your chest only continued to grow each time you talked to or saw that person. And worse yet, they never even knew about your feelings. At this point in the story, Takaki is not the narrator. Instead, it is his high school classmate Kane. And this stage of the story is all about unreciprocated love. It is a struggle of her need to express her feelings, but she can never work up the courage to do so. It makes her feel completely helpless. Traditional fiction, especially romantic fiction, often has a character harbor unrequited feelings for another. Eventually, the target of their affection realizes their feelings and returns them. They live happily ever after, or are prepared to start their newfound relationship. That is not the case in Cosmonaut. People do not fall in love with one another simply because one side feels a certain way. Each has their own emotional troubles to deal with. Relationships are a two-way street. Kane realizes this, that Takaki is clearly thinking of someone else. And the pain of time in this section similarly gives us a chance to empathize with Kane. She waits and waits and waits for Takaki after school, for the chance to small talk with him afterwards, to walk together with him as they head home. Each day seems like a repeat of the last. She's never able to express her feelings to him. I didn't really understand the spaceship analogy, but now I do. When Kane cries in front of Takaki, the spaceship takes off, and we are given this very poignant scene. Expressing romantic feelings towards someone who doesn't reciprocate the same feelings feels a lot like her words. I feel like I'm blindly reaching for something that I will never have in my grasp, that I will never reach. And as time goes on, I find that the pain in my heart grows, much like Kane's pain. Time shapes us, molds us, and sometimes forces us to evolve. And even if we hate change and we have no desire to change, we have no choice. We still change. When I was younger, I had a tendency to cling to the experiences I had to survive in the world. And this was especially true in middle and high school. As for Takaki, I find that he is an overwhelmingly realistic portrayal of someone who seems certain, but is uncertain. Confident, and yet desperate. Still clinging to memories that were once precious to him. I've thought a lot about the friendships and relationships I once had in high school. A lot of them are gone now, and we've all moved on to different things and different people. I didn't have a lot of friends in high school to begin with, though I did have a lot of acquaintances. I knew lots of people at church, but very rarely felt like anyone ever really knew what was on my mind, or knew me. I find it the most interesting when I return home from college. Somewhere, in the subconscious of the human mind, I think part of me wants to believe that when I leave home, it is frozen in time until I return. The last part of the film is easily the most bitter in depicting the pain of time and its effects. Takaki is an adult now, but yet continues to experience feelings of regret and sorrow. And I don't think it's unreasonable to say that he's depressed. He struggles to find purpose in his life. His job doesn't provide this purpose, so he quits. He has a romantic relationship, but it's unsatisfying. Takaki clings to his memories, with the pain of time still entrenched in his heart. It's clearly still weighing him down. Both Takaki and Akari happen to walk by each other when crossing railroad tracks, much like their shared memory from so long ago. Except this time, they don't recognize each other. She immediately vanishes from his sight. Perhaps she is a figment of his imagination, an embodiment of his struggles to accept the present and break free of the past. Because he is constantly brooding, it closes him off. He barely notices the world around him, and that other people, unlike his memories, are dynamic and ever-changing. We see Akari again, and she is engaged. On the train ride to visit her fiancé, she thinks back to when Takaki and her had their childhood relationship. But unlike Takaki, she has clearly moved on past the pain of time in her life. We see a clear dissonance between the two. Both have experienced the pain of time, but unlike Akari, Takaki has his entire existence mired in it. He fails to move forward, to accept that the past is exactly that. The past. And that there are things happening all around him. Experiences to have, emotions to feel, and life to live. Like Takaki, I was mired in these very same feelings as a freshman in college, wondering why my attempts at friendship were continuing to fail. Why is this not working? Why aren't these friendships like my high school ones? When I came home from college, I felt as if I had missed a lot of things in my absence. Time continued to move on, after all, and I realized that it wasn't static. I think the feeling of frozen time comes from reminiscing, that our memories of people are what we project onto them when we reunite. And when they don't align with those memories, we get confused, distraught even. I quickly realized that the people I had once considered friends had changed from my memories of them. They had new friends, romantic relationships, jobs, experiences, and lives that I hadn't been a part of. With or without me, they were going to move on. The reality is that nothing is ever exactly the same, and as such, no memories will be the same. The sooner I accepted that, the quicker I was able to adapt to people whose personalities were significantly different than my own, or to take on things I had never experienced. I'm happy to say that I moved past the pain of time by accepting the present and becoming more aware of the people and world around me. But I would be lying if I said that it doesn't affect me from time to time. As agonizing as the pain of time is, I feel like it taught me something very important. While I don't believe we should ever forget the past, we shouldn't try to replicate those bygone days in the present. Doing so will only bog us down. If you narrow your focus and develop tunnel vision, thinking about all the memories and happy feelings you once had, you'll miss what's going on around you in the present. I feel like I gave up on a lot of potential friendships because they weren't like my past ones. To me, those missed opportunities are far more painful than the pain of time itself.